Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation now. And welcome to our January 2016 first tips and tricks webinar of the year. And Happy New Year to everyone. Today we're going to go a little bit more in depth into a couple of new features that are on the portal. Some of you may already be using this. This was something that used to be an additional feature that had to be turned on, but now it's something that is on for everyone. And you may not have noticed it or started utilizing it yet, but these two features are the crop to bleed on completion feature and the force dimensions on upload. There is a zoom button in the upper left area of the screen that will expand the image if you need to see if you have problems seeing my screen. The screen is pretty big, so it may be something you have to adjust. We'll have a little Q&A session at the end if it's something that you all have questions about. Please submit any questions using the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start this demonstration. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start showing you where these two new features can be located. And we're going to go ahead and go into a publication. So I'm going to this testing VP here. And then you go to your ad sizes. Once in ad sizes, you go to the ad size you want to turn this on for. So I'm going to use this full page ad spec for this demonstration. You see here there are a couple of new features here. One is crop to bleed on completion, and one is force dimensions on upload. If I click on this question mark here, we can get a little bit more information on what this does. So basically, as it states, this option crops the document to the bleed upon finalization. So in other words, that means if you have a document that has more bleed than is required by your ad spec. In this case here, for example, my bleed is 1/8. So if I get an ad that has a 1/4 inch bleed or more, and I want to keep everything consistent and for my final files and have it at 1/8, I can crop the ad to my bleed spec on completion. So I have a ad here that I'm going to utilize for this purpose. This ad here has this ad here has some extra bleed on it. It's got about 1/4 inch bleed all around. So this is the ad I'm going to use for this demonstration here. So we're going to start off with showing you how this ad would go through the system without these two things turned on first, so we can kind of get a reference. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that ad real quick. And pick my full page ad spec. And choosing my ad with extra bleed here. I'm going to go ahead and upload that. So what we should notice when we see this ad, the final ad in this case, is that it didn't do anything to the ad, to the bleed. It's still in the file, so to speak. So I'm going to take a look at that as soon as this completes processing. All right, I'll go ahead. So you can see there, you can see the bleed that is the ad spec bleed. But you can still see that there is some extra bleed here. So the bleed is a little bit larger than what our ad spec is calling for. And go ahead and approve it because the ad is fine. Go ahead and approve that. Let's see, second. I'm going to go ahead and download this this ad. So this is the final ad as you will receive it. As you can see, it does have the new bleed spec as per my ad, but it does also show the additional bleed as it had in the original file. So that's now sort of a margin. So that's how it looks when the ad goes through without any of those new features turned on. So now we're going to go ahead and turn on those features, one of those features first, and then upload the same ad again. So I go back to my full page ad spec, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the crop to bleed on completion feature first. So you will get a file reinterpretation warning, and that's basically stating that to be aware that turning this option on will force all outgoing files to this ad specification to be cropped at bleed. So in other words, the final document size will be trim size plus bleed size. Okay, so this should be the 1/8 bleed as we have set in this ad spec here. So that's turned on now. We're going to go ahead and upload a new file here. I'm picking the same ad as I did earlier. So what we should see in this ad now in the final ad is that the extra it's got a 1/4 inch bleed on the original file, but the final ad would be cropped down to the ad specs bleed specifications. So it would only have an 1/8 inch bleed since that's my specification for this ad size. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this ad. You can see it still has, it shows the original bleed here. We can go ahead and approve this too. And let this finalize. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and download this final ad for this ad here. So as you see now, it has been cropped down to the bleed, which is 1/8, and we can open up the original as comparison. So you can see it now has a new bleed size. The trim size is the same, it's just cropped out that extra bleed. So, if you want your ads to, all sort of have a very consistent look for this particular ad size, this is a good way to do that. In case you have some customers that upload an ad that has more bleed than you need, but you want to kind of keep it all very consistent. This is a good way to do that. All right. So now that's kind of concludes the first part of this webinar today, which is the cropped bleed on completion. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off now. We're going to turn on this force dimensions on upload. And again, we have a file reinterpretation warning. And it states that you should be aware that turning this option on will add or remove margins from the trim box of the document upon upload. In other words, the final document size will be trim size plus margin size. Okay. I'm going to set this margin kind of large right now so it's easy to see it for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to set it to a 1-inch margin. Then I'm going to go ahead and upload. I'm going to send you the same file again. I'm going to pick the same ad with the extra bleed here. Open that up. Upload. So what we should expect to see now in this case is that we have added extra margin to the ad in the final output. We let this finalize and then take a look at that. Okay, so you can see in the preview here that we have a lot of extra margin here in this, in this view right now. I'm going to go ahead and approve this, and approve this too. All right, I'll go ahead and download the final ad for this. As you can see now, it has a lot of extra margin added to the trim size of this ad. Yeah, still the bleed is correct. Still, the bleed box and the trim box is still what the specs are calling for, but it has an extra margin. This is something, I don't know, maybe some workflows could utilize. That sort of depends on everyone's workflow, but yeah, I'm not really sure exactly where this would be handy. Maybe it has something to do with placing the ad in, for example, into InDesign, and it uses the overall page size versus the trim size or something. But if you want, again, this for consistency. If you want to have a consistent sort of look on all your full page ads, for example, in this case, we can then force the margins to a specific size. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go back to this one more time and take a look at a message that you see in this view, and that states that if margins are set to 0, bleed area will be removed. And I think actually we have a question about that here, which I think will answer that. The question that states, if we have an ad size that doesn't bleed and we want the final ad file cropped down to the trim size, how do we do that? Okay, so I think this will answer this question for you right here. So if I set this to 0 on all these here, we can go ahead and upload the same ad again. So what we should see now with this ad is exactly what that question is asking about. So in this case, it will remove all the bleed, and give you a file that is just to trim size. It doesn't have any bleed at all. So let's take a look at that once this finishes. All right, we can still see it in here, but we're going to go ahead and approve this, and this will be it'll be on the final file that you will see this change have happened. All right, and go ahead and download the final file here. As you can see, this is now just an add to the trim size. No bleed at all. So I think that answers the question that came up here earlier. Okay, yeah. So that pretty much concludes the demonstration. I do have one other question here I see. So the question is, what would happen if both of them were checked, both these boxes? So it doesn't really work together. So if you put this on, it will, it will take precedence over adding a margin. So it doesn't, it will crop it down to the bleed. So having both these on doesn't really work. You have to have one or the other. So hopefully that answers that. And that is the extent of this presentation today. Hope it was helpful and it's something you can utilize. And stay tuned for our upcoming tips and tricks webinars. You'll have a good day.